Everyone in town laughed when Sophia Reeves inherited the Blackwater Estate. But the night she broke open one old wall, the house finally stopped laughing back. The rain came down hard that morning, hitting the windshield like tiny bullets as Sophia's old car crawled up the broken road. Through the fog, she could barely see the mansion, 3 stories of rot and ruin standing at the end of a dying driveway. Paint peeled from the walls, windows were cracked like broken smiles, and weeds had swallowed the front steps. Behind her, 7-year-old Ruby pressed her nose to the window, eyes wide. "Is that our new house, Mama?" she asked softly. Sophia looked at her daughter in the mirror and forced a smile. "Yes, baby, it just needs some love." But love couldn't fix a leaking roof or pay back taxes. Love couldn't keep the lights on or fill a lunchbox when money was gone. Still, she unlocked the gates. They groaned open like something in pain. As she drove closer, she saw faces in nearby cars, neighbors slowing down to stare. They'd always looked at her like that, the broke single mom who never got it right. The house looked worse up close. The porch sagged, the wood was soft with rot, and the smell of mildew and something sharp like oil paint hung in the air. Ruby held her hand tight as they stepped inside. The floor creaked beneath their feet, dust floating in the air like ash. "Stay close," Sophia whispered. "Some floors might not be safe." They moved from room to room, the flashlight showing holes in ceilings, walls black with mold, and floors ready to give way. Hope began to fade. But even in all that ruin, Sophia saw something, the bones of beauty, the kind of craftsmanship that didn't exist anymore. Maybe this place still had a story left to tell. By the time they reached the east wing, the afternoon light had turned gray. This part of the house was darker. The windows were boarded up from the outside, blocking every bit of daylight. The wallpaper was old and peeling, showing ghost patterns of roses that had once been red. At the end of the hall was a door that looked different from the others. The brass knob still shined under her flashlight, clean and untouched. Sophia pushed it open. The room beyond was strange. No dust, no mold, no broken furniture. It looked as if someone had been there recently. Books lined the walls, and a desk sat near the corner, papers still neatly stacked. Behind it, the wood paneling caught her eye. One section looked loose, slightly pulled away from the wall. "Mama, what's that?" Ruby asked, pointing. Sophia walked over, heart pounding. She ran her fingers along the edge and felt air moving behind it. She gripped the panel, pulled hard, and it suddenly swung open. A cold breath of air rushed out, different from the rest of the house, clean, dry, preserved. Her flashlight cut through the dark, revealing not an empty space, but walls lined with paintings. Real ones. Gold frames, vivid colors, portraits, and landscapes that looked like they belonged in a museum. "Don't touch," she whispered as Ruby reached out, eyes wide in wonder. Sophia's pulse raced. Her knees almost gave out as she stepped closer. She saw brush strokes she recognized from her college art books, names she thought she'd only ever read about, paintings that had vanished decades ago, and then she saw one signature, faint but clear, her breath caught. "No," she whispered, "it can't be." But it was. 3 days later, she sat across from Thomas Garrett, a respected art appraiser from the city. He had driven down after Sophia begged him to come, promising secrecy. Now, as he looked at the photos on his tablet, his face turned pale. He adjusted his glasses twice before speaking. "Miss Reeves," he said slowly, "do you understand what you found?" Sophia shook her head. "I just know they're real." He turned the screen toward her, documents, auction records, museum archives. 3 of these paintings disappeared during World War II, he said. They were thought destroyed. If these are authentic, he stopped, took a deep breath. You're sitting on at least $40 million. $40 million. The words didn't sound real. Sophia gripped the edge of the chair, staring at her daughter coloring quietly in the corner. Ruby had no idea that their lives had just changed forever. The appraiser continued talking about authentication, insurance, security, but Sophia barely heard him. Her mind was already racing. All the times she'd had to say no to Ruby, all the nights she'd gone without dinner so her daughter could eat, all the bills she couldn't pay gone just like that. But then a cold thought crept in. This kind of money doesn't stay secret. She could already imagine the town talking, the same people who mocked her now lining up to take something from her. As Thomas packed his things, he gave her one last look. "Be careful, Miss Reeves," he said. "Fortune attracts shadows." Sophia tried to keep it quiet. She told no one except Thomas and a lawyer from the city. But secrets have a way of escaping. Someone at the authentication firm leaked the news, and by Tuesday morning, news vans covered the street outside Blackwater Estate. By Wednesday, reporters were shouting her name through the gates. And by Thursday, her phone wouldn't stop ringing, collectors, museum directors, even strangers offering money. The town's reaction was worse. People who'd once pitied her now smiled too wide. The mayor wanted to partner on turning the house into a tourist attraction. Her ex-husband called, suddenly worried about Ruby's future. At school pickup, the same mothers who'd once ignored her blocked her path. "Must be nice," one of them sneered, "finding out you're secretly rich while the rest of us actually work for what we have." Sophia's jaw tightened. "I need to get my daughter." "Oh, of course," another said mockingly, "maybe you'll buy her a pony now." The words hit like knives. But something inside Sophia had changed. "You know what's funny?" she said quietly. "A week ago you looked right through me. Now you see me because of money that I didn't even ask for, but I'm still the same person who worked 2 jobs to survive." The group fell silent. Sophia walked past them, heart pounding, not with fear this time, but with strength. That night she sat in the dark, staring at the hidden gallery, the paintings glowing softly in the flashlight's beam. She picked up the phone and called Thomas. "I don't want to sell them all," she said. "I want to do something different." Sophia couldn't sleep that night. The storm had passed, but the house still made its sounds, groans, cracks, whispers through the walls like it was breathing in its sleep. She sat alone in the gallery, surrounded by paintings worth more than she could imagine. But all she could think about was her Aunt Margaret. Why had she hidden them? Why live in poverty with a fortune just a wall away? The answer came slowly. Maybe Aunt Margaret didn't want these paintings to end up in private hands again. Maybe she was protecting them. And now Sophia realized that duty had passed to her, so she made a plan. Instead of selling everything and disappearing, she'd sell only 3 paintings, just enough to restore the mansion and create something lasting. Blackwater Estate wouldn't be her burden anymore. It would become a museum, a place where anyone could see these masterpieces. Thomas thought she was brave. The lawyer thought she was insane. But for the first time, Sophia didn't care what anyone thought. She spent days researching restoration, meeting contractors, and learning about art preservation. She hired local workers, the same people who had once pitied her, and gave them steady jobs. The house began to wake up. The smell of fresh wood replaced rot. The walls stopped weeping, and every hammer strike felt like a heartbeat, bringing life back into the bones of Blackwater. Ruby taped her drawings to the walls of their small bedroom, smiling more each day. The mansion, once a symbol of failure, was becoming something new, a place built from courage, not shame. 6 months later, Blackwater Estate reopened its doors, not as a ruin, but as a story reborn. The floors gleamed, the staircase curved upward like it had been waiting to lead people toward wonder again. The first visitors were children from Ruby's school. They walked through the gallery wide-eyed, whispering to each other about colors and faces that looked alive. Sophia stood in the back, quietly watching. Some of the same mothers who had mocked her were there too, pretending they'd always supported her. But none of that mattered now. She saw something better, kids from her own town seeing real art for the first time, inspired, amazed, hopeful. When the governor arrived a month later to celebrate the opening, reporters called Sophia the woman who turned a tragedy into treasure. She didn't feel like a hero. She just felt at peace, because this wasn't about money anymore. It was about giving something back, about proving that beauty doesn't belong to the highest bidder. Ruby told her, "Mama, you're famous now." Sophia smiled. "No, baby," she said, "we're just home." That night, after the visitors left, she walked alone through the quiet galleries. The woman in blue, the portrait that had once scared her, seemed to smile differently now, as if she approved. For the first time in years, the house didn't feel haunted. It felt grateful. Weeks turned into months, and Sophia discovered more secrets hidden in the walls, not paintings this time, but letters. Old envelopes signed by Aunt Margaret and other women in the family. They told stories of moving art during the war, protecting it from thieves and collectors who would have locked it away. Each generation had taken the same vow, to guard beauty until the world was ready to share it. Sophia realized she was part of that line now, a chain of women who had chosen courage over comfort. One day, Brenda Collins, the same woman who once mocked her, showed up at the museum gates with her elderly mother. Brenda's mother had dementia, barely spoke anymore. But when she saw one of the paintings, a woman in a garden, she started to cry. She whispered memories of her own childhood, stories she had forgotten. Brenda turned to Sophia, tears streaming down her face. "I was wrong about you," she said quietly. Sophia nodded. "It's okay," she replied. "The museum's open every day but Monday. Bring her whenever you like." Forgiveness came not from words, but from understanding. Sophia had learned something powerful. When you let go of anger, you make space for light. The mansion that once hid treasures in the dark now created space for new beauty to grow. 2 years later, on the morning of the museum's anniversary, sunlight poured through the tall windows of Blackwater Estate. The marble floors gleamed. The walls, once cracked and bleeding with mold, now held history and hope. Visitors lined up outside, families, students, artists, all waiting to step into the story that had once nearly broken Sophia. Ruby, now 8, wore a small volunteer badge and smiled proudly beside her. "You ready, Mama?" she asked. Sophia nodded. "I've been ready my whole life." As the first guests entered, Sophia looked around at what she had built. This was more than an inheritance. It was proof that even from ruin, beauty can rise again, that courage can turn pain into purpose, and that some treasures aren't meant to be hidden, they're meant to be shared. Later that night, after everyone had gone home, Sophia walked the quiet halls one last time. The paintings seemed alive, glowing in the soft light. She stopped in front of the woman in blue, her oldest companion in this strange journey. "Thank you," she whispered, "for choosing me." The eyes in the portrait almost seemed to smile. Sophia smiled back and turned toward the door, her footsteps echoing in the house that no longer mocked her but sang with life. And if you ever inherit something broken, a house, a dream, a piece of yourself, remember Sophia Reeves. Because sometimes the greatest treasures are what we find, but what we choose to rebuild. Headphone, if you felt this story, hit that like button. Share it with someone who needs hope tonight. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. Stories that remind us that even in the darkest places, beauty still waits behind the walls.